I feel like when you look at tag team wrestling now, we talk about it almost. And I think that's just they're going to break up and they're going to go singles and there's going to be a feud involved. I got to tell you, I really like the way that AEW handles their tag teams. You don't think of the Young Bucks ever breaking up or FTR ever breaking up. Like, established tag teams are there to really wave the flag of tag team wrestling. So when I look at AEW, one thing I think they've done right these first 6 years of their existence is tag team wrestling because to me it's a reflection of what we saw in the late 70s and early 80s.
I have liked what AEW has done with their tag teams. Lately, I feel like the attention to tag team wrestling has tapered off a bit. I am looking forward to FTR versus Copeland Christian if there's going to be any more to it. When it comes to the breaking up of tag teams, I've never been a fan of it. However, I was flattered when Vince McMahon broke up me and Devon. As much as me and Devon were against it, because we knew that the fans didn't want to see Bubba on his own or Devon on his own, we were quite flattered as to the reason Vince McMahon broke us up. In the inaugural draft, I got drafted 6, Devon got drafted 7. Why did Vince McMahon bring us up? He said, I need to shock people. And breaking you guys up would be shocking. And standing in front and Vince telling you that and having so much confidence in you guys and us as a team, knowing that this would send shockwaves through the WWE, it was a big deal. It was a big deal to us. And he said, if things don't work out, I can always put you back together. And me and Devon getting back to the Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden was a huge moment. But what happens to every successful tag team in the WWE? They wind up getting broken up. Now, if Edge and Christian don't get broken up, does Edge get that opportunity in that singles run, that legendary WWE singles run, in which he became John Cena's biggest rival?
Probably not. No. I mean, you needed to break that team up for that to happen. The same thing with, a Bully Ray becoming a world champion in TNA. If it's not for, Devon and Bubba breaking up, that opportunity never arises. We talk about it on Busted Open. You and I, Road Warrior Hawk, had that series of matches with Ric Flair at the Great American Bash. Ricky Morton did as well. If the Rock and Roll Express did break up, we could have seen Ricky Morton as an NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
So, interesting question for you. What is the most memorable tag team breakup that you can remember?
It's Mark and Jannetty going through the barbershop with them.
Did that hurt tag team wrestling in a sense of one guy went on to do major things? Shawn Michaels went on to become Mr. WrestleMania, and Marty fell by the wayside. Do you think that the plan was for Shawn to survive and get the push, and Marty to get thrown to the wayside? Do you think that they were both given the same opportunities?
I think it started with the right intention, but quickly, we saw Shawn Michaels rise to the top and Marty Jannetty fall off. But I think the intention was for there to be a major feud between Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty.
Do you think it set the table for tag team breakups in the future?
Yes.
See how I'm getting out of it?
Yes. I think it was so good. It was such a memorable moment that yes, it did set a precedent. Like at some point, we got to have that Marty Jannetty, Shawn Michaels moment.
Has any tag team ever broken up in which both members of the team succeeded equally?
No. Like
Closest?
even Edge and Christian would be the closest.
Agreed.
Yeah, but still, like I think edges out Christian at the end of the day. But that's as close as you can possibly get.
And it's the closest.
Yes.
But Edge's singles run is definitively more prestigious than Christian's, despite the fact that Christian is excellent at what he did. Christian won the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Edge went on to become a main eventer, in championship caliber main eventer in the WWE.
Yeah.
Tag team wrestling has always been very, very important. At the end of the day, though, unfortunately, for a booker, for a promoter, for an owner, it's a lot more cost effective to pay two guys than it is four.
And we've even seen, like here we are, the Hardys, arguably the greatest tag team of all time. Vince broke up the Hardys. He had a feud between Matt and Jeff. So even like teams that in the WWE, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay have had a feud. Like I just feel like in the WWE, it's always set up to fail at some point. Some point there's gonna be a breakup. Are we gonna get that with FTR and the Young Bucks? Probably not. I think both those teams will probably retire without ever really breaking up.
I have no desire to see Matt Jackson wrestle by himself or Nick Jackson wrestle by himself. I have no desire to see Dax or Cash wrestle by themselves. It's like when you broke up the Dudleys, you took away everything that fans would pay to see. You take away the Wazam, you take away the Devon at the tables, you take away the 3D. Those are three monster fucking hit songs that we wrote. And in breaking us up, the fans didn't get to hear those songs played for that period of time. Now we got back together and we kept playing them over and over again and everything worked out. I think there are certain things that are synonymous. And it's crazy, David, I've told you this story before. When Vince asked me and Devon how we felt about being broken up, we told him we didn't like it. And he said, well, why? And I said, with all due respect, nobody wanted to see Hawk or Animal wrestle by themselves. Hawk did a great job wrestling Flair, but you knew in your heart of hearts Hawk was never going to beat Flair. They made it very believable within the body of the match. I want to see the Road Warriors. I don't want to see Animal or Hawk. I want to see the Road Warriors. I want to see the Dudleys. I want to see Team 3D. I don't want to see Bubba or Devon. I was able to do something very unique with Bully Ray. And much like Team 3D was as successful as the Dudleys, I'm proud to say that, and tell me if you disagree with this, and if you do, it's cool. Bully Ray was as successful as Team 3D or the Dudleys.
He's former world champion and the face of a company at a time when the popularity of the company was probably at its highest. As all you want to say about the Dudleys and Team 3D, you can say definitively that Bully Ray had more main event matches than both those tag teams. Had a longer main event run than both those tag teams.
Absolutely.
So to answer your question, yes.
And when I look back at, the Dudleys or Team 3D, I am able to detach myself. I can speak as Mark, the broadcaster, the journalist, the analyst, whatever the hell you want to call me, when I look at the body of work of the Dudleys and Team 3D. Most of the stuff that they did was extremely memorable. Whether it was the matches that they were in, the storylines they were involved in. The Dudleys and ECW were an extremely unique act. And the fact that Vince McMahon courted, dated, he wanted us and brought us over, and then gave us the opportunity to have the success in the WWE. That's unheard
at it in real time, it's not even a question. It's not even close.
I have two better answers for you.
Go ahead.
The Steiners and the Nasty Boys.
And maybe even the sheep herders, becoming, like that's probably another one too.
The Nasty Boys have a very, very underrated run in the WWE.
You know what? I probably put what they did in the WWF definitely bigger than they did in any other organization, so it would probably be the Nasty Boys.
I believe that the Nasty Boys were like 5-time WWF Tag Team Champions.
What's up? Thank you, cool guy 123.
Good run in the WWE.
No, I did not add anyone from Bob's Burger. Never watched that show actually. What's up, Choco Sylvian?
I remember the Steiners getting split up in WWE or the Nasty Boys. Scott obviously went on to have a great singles career in WCW and TNA. But tag team wrestling is so important. Tag team wrestling is important in the WWE, but it's more important when it's two single stars put together.
Yeah, and they always tend to do that, right? Like established teams will lose to two stars being put together on a random Monday Night Raw.
In one of the early editions of the WWE Encyclopedia, there's a page dedicated to Jude Love and Steve Austin. And the picture that they used of Jude Love and Steve Austin has them holding the tag team championships. On the page dedicated to the Dudleys, they're not holding the tag team championships. That spoke volumes to me.
Interesting.
We're 9-time WWE World Tag Team Champions. Mick and Steve were like once, maybe twice, but their picture, the perception that they create. Tag team wrestling around the world has been very important. All Japan held a yearly tournament. Now, me and Devon, I'm proud to say me and Devon were involved in. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, if the Rock and Roll Express ever went to the WWF, Vince would have had them break up.
1,000%, and he would have pushed Ricky Morton to the moon, and Robert Gibson, unfortunately, would have fell by the wayside. And I hate it when people say, "Oh, that guy became the Marty Jannetty." I think that's just so disrespectful to say. Listen, Marty, had his ups and downs, and has his demons, but I just think I don't like saying that. I don't like saying that. Not that I never used it in a promo. I told Devon to his face in a promo. I said, "You're not the Marty Jannetty of Team 3D. You're the Devon of Team 3D, which is 100 times worse." That hit home.
But you know what, though? They do say it because of the moment, and the moment was so big, and it didn't pan out. Like, you saw a team that was on top break up, and one go to the moon and the other one fall. So that's always going to be, unfortunately, that's always going to be the barometer.
Does that speak to the genius of Vince McMahon, though, in some way, shape, or form? That he looked at this tag team who was over, who people loved, the women loved, and he looked at it and went, "That's the money right there. That guy on his own." That he was willing to break up an established act to take the risk of running with one instead of both.
But Bully, did he do the same thing with the Hart Foundation? I mean, he broke up the Hart Foundation, and Bret Hart became a champion, and we never really saw Jim Neidhart hit those highs, not nearly as big as Bret Hart.
So does that speak to the genius of Vince McMahon also? Does he know that in using teams, there's a good chance he's going to find that singles guy? The APA, who would have ever thought that one of the members of the Acolyte Protection Agency, the Acolytes, Bradshaw, would go on to be such a great, credible, heat-seeking missile of a world heavyweight champion?
And I'm going to play the other side, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not on this, Bully, but, we've seen the Usos break apart. Jey Uso win the Royal Rumble, become a world champion. I still think that people look at Jey Uso and they think of the Usos. Even though obviously he had a lot more success than Jimmy by breaking out on his own. And that people want to see Jimmy and Jey together. Would you say that's correct?
Oh, wow, this is a hard one. About a month ago, we might be going on 2 months now, I saw Jimmy and Jey back in the ring together on Monday Night Raw to kick the show off. And only then was I reminded of how great the Usos were. I had kind of forgot them because they had been split up for so long and because Jey has achieved so much on his own. And it's odd because I was so adamant about making sure the Usos got over when they wrestled the Dudleys. I really wanted to see them succeed and go on to become something, and they did. But Jey's run on his own really left Jimmy in the dust.
No doubt. But there's such a magic when those two are together. You know, the first, tag team, like established tag team.
Is there really magic when the Usos are together? Magic?
I think there's something special about the two of them together.
Fair enough.
That it's hard to, even though Jey Uso's had all this success, that fans don't want to see them back together again.
Here's what I know, Dave. Fans love tag team wrestling. Tag team wrestling, when done right, works, and it works really well. And tag team wrestling has shown that it can main event any arena, any place in the world when the right two tag teams are there.
The impact of pro wrestling tag teams. I think we just broke it down. Thanks to Bully Ray. Make sure you subscribe to Busted Open's The Masters Class. Also, don't forget, we have also the Busted Open podcast available. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page. Make sure you hit that notification button each and every time so you know that you're going to get a video and when we drop our latest one. And if you like what you hear here, you're going to love Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7 on SiriusXM. For Bully Ray, we'll talk to you next time right here on Busted Opens, the Masters Class. Want more of our Masters? Subscribe now to the Busted Open podcast feed for daily pro wrestling reaction, analysis, and hilarity. Just search Busted Open on the SiriusXM app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Canada, it's time for more us. More of our attitude. More
Hey
grit.
Siri.
Go and we got this. More of the true north.
Hey Siri, next.
Strong and free.
Fucking
A message from the Government of Canada.
Ça, c'est le son d'un mensonge. Un mensonge qui veut vous faire croire que les poulets sont prisonniers de leur cage. En fait, les poulets d'élevage sont placés dans des espaces propres avec la place pour circuler. Ils s'en disent plein d'affaires sur Internet, mais nos producteurs connaissent les faits. Plus d'infos au poulet.ca/soins.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name's Rajiv. I'm in Sacramento, California. I came to Save with Conrad because I've heard Conrad talk about how he helps people all the time save money and the best route to go for getting some mortgages and finances done. And having heard so many different testimonials in the past, it made the most sense to go this route. We were in the market for a new house and we wanted to know what we could afford, so we spoke through the pre-approval process to see what we could afford, and then once we were able to understand that aspect of it, that was when we were able to shop around for a house to get a mortgage.
Peter is not there, unfortunately.
Everybody on the team was
There's
great.
Brian, though.
Everybody really explained everything.
Thank you, Jay Isaac.
More in like layman's terms to where I could understand it as someone
Yeah,
that
Bubbles not there.
or
Bubbles with his cats.
houses too many times, so being able to understand every step of the process and talking with everyone on the team about that was really, really helpful and
He gets them in the airport? I've seen, I believe I saw him when he was in the airport. Yeah. I didn't know you could get pedicures in the airport. Just so I'm clear, though, are you saying you've never gotten a pedicure? Your wife never talked you into doing that once? No, I have gotten like the feet massages and like my toenails clipped, but not really. So which is technically a pedicure. I don't like clipping my toenails because I'm old. No, listen, I like the idea of them scrubbing the dead skin off. Like, hey, it tickles a little bit, but that's funny, and that feels like that's value add. But I mean, I'm not suggesting that a wrestling god with a clothesline from hell goes over and picks color. I don't think you're picking. Oh no, there's nothing like that. Absolutely nothing like that. I just don't want to clip them. I hate having been down and clip my damn toenails. So I go in, I get my little massages on my feet, and then I get like the toenails clipped. That's all. I don't get like a pedicure and a little wax and all that stuff. I just, very simple stuff. The Arrive Clothesline Somebody Leave shirt is also here at somethingtowrestlemerch.com. If you haven't already, go pick your favorite color, pick your favorite design, and support a little support for Something to Wrestle with John Layfield. I like both of these, but I feel like if it was a JR shirt, it would say Arrive, get a pedicure, make the connection. I had no idea you could get pedicures in the airport. You blow my mind today. Yeah, I think so. Now, I could be wrong here, so you need to ask JR about this, but I've seen him put out pictures, and I think he was traveling. I think he was in the airport where he got them, because he could see things in the background that looked like the airport, so I think it was, yes. So he might go to the airport, and he might look in there and see a cowboy hat, JR there, and boots off, and get the pedicure. I want to give a little love to JR. I know that he's missed a few episodes of Grilling JR, his podcast, and I don't believe he'll be on hand for the AEW pay-per-view this weekend, but I'm happy to report he's on the mend and he's headed home. He'll be back in Oklahoma by the time you're hearing this, or shortly thereafter. I'm excited that he's back home in Oklahoma. I know it's not your favorite state, but man, Oklahoma and JR, that's favorite state. If hell were a state, it'd be more popular than Oklahoma. Okay. All right. We know how you feel about that. By the way, over the weekend, I don't know if the worst thing that they ever did, like not the Trail of Tears was bad, it was genocide, but you have to stick all the natives in Oklahoma. That was the worst thing they ever did to them. Not just stealing their land, killing all the buffalo and shooting them in the back and stuff like that. That was bad. But putting them in Oklahoma, by the way, it's Columbus Day today. A big shout out to Mr. Briscoe on Columbus Day. He's a huge fan of Christopher Columbus. I didn't know that. I had no idea that he was a Christopher Columbus guy. It feels like it would have gone the other way. Yeah, no, he and his brother, they discovered Christopher Columbus. They're sitting there on the East Coast and they was fishing, and he goes, hey, Jack, look, there's a boat. You think that he might be a friend? And Jack said, what's a boat? And he goes, I don't know. But that's the guy that's coming here. He's, look at it. And so they invited him in. They didn't know, of course, that they're going to, commit genocide and enslave a bunch of people and kill all the buffalo and take their land. But anyway, it started really well. And Briscoe, a big Columbus fan, so huge Columbus fan. He loves Christopher Columbus. Mr. Briscoe loves Christopher Columbus. Best thing I think our listeners could do today would be to tweet Mr. Briscoe pictures of Christopher Columbus today, don't you think? Yes. Tweet Mr. Briscoe pictures of Christopher Columbus and mention that on Something to Wrestle With, you heard that he was a huge Christopher Columbus fan. I mean, this is almost like the way you're describing it. It sounds like Christmas for the Briscoes. Almost exactly what it was. Because they would have, like, December 25th was a big deal for all of us and like a lot of people that still have the Christian faith. But to the Briscoes, Columbus Day is their big day. Almost as big as Thanksgiving, but not quite. You learn something new every day. So tweet Mr. Briscoe a picture of Christopher Columbus and tell him we know you like Christopher Columbus. Here he is. What a fine man. Man of virtue. We've got to get Mr. Briscoe on for a Thanksgiving special. Could you dress like a pilgrim? We know what he'll dress as, but could you dress like a pilgrim? That would be fun. I'd be happy to. And if I can find Hector's old costume, I'll even come as the turkey. We need to get Ben Brown to jump on us. Can you imagine if we made that happen? That's what we need. A cameo from Ben Brown in full gimmick. Yes. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We appreciate you guys joining us on Something to Wrestle. We're going to talk about the big controversy from this past week about JBL. Stay tuned for that. Speaking of controversy, nearly 26 years ago, we're going to talk about Jeff Jarrett and Vince McMahon and how it all went sideways. We're also going to talk about a very strange night of Monday Night Raw 10 years ago. We'll hit John's top 5 bad guys in the history of pro wrestling. Of course, we're going to talk about the big news at Bound for Glory, including a new world champion, but also Team 3D. We knew them as the Dudleys, and it's rare that we get to do this. Usually we record our show on this time on Monday as almost like a warm-up for Monday Night Raw, but because it was in Australia, it's already happened. We'll talk about that and a little Teddy Long love, if you will, coming your way. So stay tuned for all that. But I do want to go ahead and just start right at the top, man. Last week, a fan going by the name Samoan Dynasty tweeted a video of a match you had with Robbie McAllister of the Highlanders. This happened, I guess, post-Backlash 2008. It was a Monday Night Raw episode the day after the pay-per-view. And the description of the tweet said, "Never forget when the Highlanders' Robbie McAllister was punished for being shown in the crowd on TNA the day before. The match against JBL was short and stiff. The look on JBL's face was real. He looked really pissed. And obviously, this has gone a little viral last week. Everybody wants to know what happened with this. Of course, on this day in WWE posts about it. They've done it on TikTok. They've done it on X. This pops up every now and again. It's a pretty famous story. What really happened here, John? Catch us up.
What was the pay-per-view the night before?
Backlash 2008.
And who did I work with?
Let me look that up.
Does it show? I have a reason to ask that because I saw something online that I'd done a job or something the night before.
That's a great point. And you were in the main event. It was Triple H, John Bradshaw Layfield, John Cena, and Randy Orton in a fatal four-way for the world title that went 30 minutes the night before. You guys did that match, believe it or not, in Baltimore, Maryland. About 11,000 fans in attendance, 200,000 buying the pay-per-view, April 27th, 2008.
And who went over in the match? Who was champion?
Triple H.
Triple H. Okay, so yeah, so somebody told me that I'd done a job or something recently before this match. That was the reason for the look. I mean, not that you need a reason for a look. You know, people say there's so many things about this, Conrad. So let's start with the look first, okay? First of all, I'm selling, doing a job. Okay, now we'll get to Robbie in a minute. I have a distinct viewpoint on that. Yeah. But I just done the job the night before. I promised everybody's gonna be champion. I'm not champion. I worked with three great guys, three all either Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, and it didn't go over. So I've got this match the next day to kind of either restore credibility. This is done all the time in the wrestling business. So when people say, "Oh, the look was legit," well, thank you, because what's the look supposed to be? Not legit. You're supposed to be able to say, "Oh, I can see through that." And if you can't see through it, you go, "Well, it must be legit." Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So that's number one about that was I was selling something for that. Number two, I didn't care one bit about the stuff with Robbie, except for the fact that he got fired. I thought it was terrible what happened to him. He takes his kid to a wrestling match, and somebody there at TNA decides to put him on camera, knowing that putting him on camera is going to get him in all kinds of trouble. That was one of the most horseshit moves I've ever seen. I mean, look at him. He knows his job is about to end because of this. Because somebody thought it was funny to do something that's going to harm him when he's taking his kid to a wrestling match. I thought it was absolutely inexcusable and sorry and wrong. Everything about it, what they did to him. So the fact that I was mad, 100% wrong. I was on his side on this. I hated the fact that he was in trouble. I hated the fact that he went and he was trying to show his kid a good time, and that somebody there thought it was funny to get him in trouble.
Good morning.
I mean, the match,
It's actually night for me.
Because of punishment. He's getting squashed. They needed
It's
somebody
midnight.
to put me over, and he was on the roster. He was going to get punished anyway. Believe me, there was nothing ever said from Vince or anybody else. Be stiff, be anything else. There was no malice. Zero malice whatsoever for Rob. In fact, just the other way, I thought it felt terrible, but the whole thing had happened.
It feels like it was more, and I know I'm using insider terms here, you as the top guy needed to get your heat back from the night before, right? That's all.
That's exactly what it was, 100%. I needed to get my heat back. He was a guy that was, I don't know what we would categorize his status, upper middle card or whatever. I don't know what you categorize it as, but he's not a jobber. So it's good to be able to go out there and squash somebody for my character. it just so happens that the reason I was questioning him is because he was in trouble, and they were going to get rid of him, and they didn't have use for him anymore, except to, help me get over and establish that character of me getting beaten up before, beating somebody up, being a bully and an asshole and all the things that JBL was pretty good at being. So no, that was all just part of, but as far as stiffness or anything, there was nothing that was I hit him with that I didn't hit Taker or Booker or anybody else with. Exactly the same. And there was certainly nothing from the office that said, hey, be extra mean to him or anything like that. That was 100% that did not happen.
Just to give everybody the timeline, Robbie had gone to the Impact taping a month prior. So it's not like this was the night before. Now, Backlash was the night before, but him appearing on TNA programming was like a whole calendar month before. I wanted to ask you, have you ever been asked about this? I know there's certain things that people always play the hits when they want to talk about you. For better or worse, they always say, oh, this. Does this come up at all?
No.
Yeah, I don't think
not really. It has come up recently, like last week on social media. I'd never really heard this before. Like a few years ago, somebody brought this up that that I was sent out there as a mercenary or something, which is 100% not true. But it wasn't really brought up. I don't think I was ever. I don't think so. And at the time, I don't think even at the time thought it was anything that was untowards about this. It's just kind of in hindsight now. People look back at it now and look at it and they want to put something together that add 2 and 2 and get 6, which is what they've done here. They've gone, that's JBL, he's being an asshole, he's beating up this guy because he went to a competitor's show, and JBL's mad about it. I wasn't mad about it. I was mad that this guy who had a son was in trouble and was probably going to get fired, which he did. I'm very mad about that because it shouldn't happen.
I know this sounds silly, but I gotta ask, given your relationship with Vince, is that something you would even broach and voice your opinion on, or is that not something worthy of using the hall pass on?
Yeah, you got to be careful where you use the hall pass, and Vince is a guy that, he's pretty set in his ways, and so no, and the thing was, Robbie did make a mistake. This was, he shouldn't have done it. And if he went, he shouldn't have sat in the crowd.
That's it. Going back and nobody knows.
That was the big mistake he made. Now, if you want to let your son sit out there, find somebody for him to sit with or something, but don't you go out there under no circumstances whatsoever. So you really can't defend this. So it wasn't a matter of me going to Vince and saying, I didn't know Robbie that well. It seemed like a nice guy from what from meeting him, and so it wasn't something where you go to Vince and say, Vince, I think that you're making a mistake here, because Robbie did make a mistake. He shouldn't have gone and sat in the crowd. If you go and you're backstage, so what? Nobody sees you. Sitting in the crowd was the problem. Now the problem came because somebody at TNA thought it was funny and shot him and put him on television, which caused this whole problem to happen.
And somebody was Jeff Jarrett. We talked to Jeff Jarrett about this a while ago, and he basically felt that shooting him in the crowd was fair game. Because if he was going to be out in the open in the crowd, instead of treating it like it was a behind-the-scenes visit while he was in Orlando for WrestleMania, that would have been different. But he felt like, hey, if he'll go sit out there, he knows what the risks are, let's do it. And I feel bad because we know a few months after this match that you had with Robbie, the Highlanders were both released. You talk about not fair. You were advocating that Robbie should not have lost his job, but what the hell did Rory do? He gets canned in the process too. He wasn't even
exactly right. Yeah, and look, I'm not gonna. Jeff's a good friend of mine, and was pretty strong about what I didn't think it should have been done. I can see Jeff's point of view. I'm not gonna throw rocks at Jeff, though. Just a good friend of mine, always has been. But I wish they hadn't filmed him. I can understand Jeff's point of view on this. I don't think I agree with it, but I can understand it.
Well, as a reminder, this is also the era where when WWE was shooting their Royal Rumble commercial on the soundstage there in Orlando, TNA sends wrestlers over with a cake and balloons and, hey, welcome to Orlando. And so they're trying to do whatever they can to sort of get attention for themselves. And at times Jeff is fighting for his survival. So I get why you would try to.
Yeah, and I can understand that. But when you're fighting for your survival, it's different. When you're like we invaded, in Norfolk. We invaded WCW. So it was you do some things when you're fighting for your survival. I can understand that's a little different from just going to an independent show and somebody shooting you, and when you're fighting for your survival, and Jeff's got his money tied up in this, he's got his reputation tied up in this. I can certainly understand it. That doesn't mean that I like it, but I can certainly understand it. But the whole problem came though, and I'm not going to blame Jeff at all. The whole problem came because Robbie sat in the crowd.
Yeah.
If Robbie hadn't sat in the crowd, this wouldn't have happened. If you film him backstage, there's no way he can prove where he is. You just see a backstage scene, whatever it is. But the problem was he went and sat out in the crowd. I mean, that was, you can't do that.
Isn't it interesting too? I mean, on some level, I know you've got to find it as a huge compliment to your work. That so many fans see this and they're like, oh, what an asshole JBL is.
Yes. Yeah.
Just totally buying into your heel character, forgetting that, hey guys, I was doing my job. No one was hurt. Everything's by the numbers. But you believed me so much. That's a great compliment, right?
Tremendous compliment. And that's why for years I never would discuss it. Now discuss it now because it's so far in past history. I wouldn't discuss it for years. I'm going to stooge myself that there was nothing to this. I'm going to let people think I'm an asshole. It helped my heel character. So absolutely, I love the fact that people thought, oh, JBL's being a complete asshole. But that's what you got on. I mean, thank you very much. But Killers and Brooks always told me that when people don't believe in there's a veneer of a character, and it is only you there, they dislike you, they think you are an asshole, that's when you got them. And I got them this time. I think it's wonderful. And that's why for years I never would discuss it, because I wanted to be a heel. I don't care anymore.
John, I can't believe this is real, but we were able to track down Robbie McAllister of the Highlanders. His real name is Derek, and over on adfreeshows.com, we set him up with Jeff Jarrett himself to sort of clear the air about what really happened that night in 2008 in Orlando. Let's take a listen.
Maybe my thought process, I didn't even think because I didn't care at the time. The only thing that really stuck was the wrath back at the WrestleMania. This is what happened at the show. Right after I was shown, my phone hit. I got a text from Jeff Jarrett's booth to get out of there, and then within 2 more minutes, I got a phone call from one of the office ladies saying to hold for John Laurinaitis. And then John Laurinaitis just said, what is one of my talent doing there? And I said, I really don't know. And then I just went back. He said a bunch of stuff, and we kind of hung up the phone, and then I went back straight to the WrestleMania hotel and looked everybody in the face. Wow. I didn't put my head down. I just went in there, and I knew that I just did something real dumb. My wife was not very happy with me. Maybe that's why I'm not with her today. Probably not. But she wasn't very happy. But you know what? It's hard to tell anyone with something going on mentally to do it. You just can't. You can't tell someone no, because you're going to do the exact opposite. Yep. It's one of those things. But I did look everybody in the eye. I looked Undertaker in the eye, and he's the only guy that I really wished I didn't piss off, because I like him. We share the same birthday. He liked me, I believe. But as for the rest, it didn't matter. I just had to do what I did, and I was told to leave Orlando, and I never did. I stayed the whole week with my family, and we had a vacation.
Man, check it out. All this and more available now at adfreeshows.com. You can hear the entire conversation, plus over 100,000 hours of other exclusive bonus content from legends like Lex Luger, Tully Blanchard, Godfather, Davey Crockett, and more. You can start for just $9 a month. Check it out. Start diving in today at adfreeshows.com. So let's talk about Double J since we're here. Jeff held up Vince at No Mercy. That's the famous story. And we've heard Jeff's side of this. It's available in the archives on My World. We've also heard Bruce's side and even Jim Ross's side. So you can go in the archives and hear what Bruce thought about it as a member of WWE management. You can go in the archives of JR's podcast, Grilling JR, and hear how he felt about it at the time as the guy who was supposedly running talent relations and the contract expired. But Jeff always had a very interesting take. We've never heard from one of the boys. So now we're going to do that here today. Coming into that day in Cleveland, way back when, 1999, were you at all aware that Jeff's contract had expired? Did the boys know? Did the locker room know? Or do you find out that day?
To my knowledge, the boys knew. We certainly knew that day. And I'm not sure when exactly we found out. We certainly knew that day. And we knew that Jeff was holding up the fence. And we couldn't believe it. I talked to Jeff about it. I'd be interested to hear your take on what Bruce and JR both said, because I have not heard what they said. But I've heard Jeff explain it. Man, it's one of the best stories in wrestling. They owed him a certain amount of pay-per-views, behind. Because we were always in behind 2 or 3 months of pay-per-views. And what Jeff wanted was to get the money that was owed him and get the money that he was going to get that night. So it wasn't just a matter of holding him up for a certain amount of money that was extra. It was he wanted to make sure he got all his money in the past. So it's a little bit different than what I had heard at the time. What I heard at the time was Jeff was just holding him up, which I still thought was pretty wild. It just, guys, you understand, to each his own. We're not mad at that. The boys are not mad at that. We can't believe that somebody let his contract expire, and all of a sudden you've got a guy who hadn't dropped the title that's going to a different company. That's where the problem lies, not with the fact that Jeff held somebody up.
I hate to be so brass tacks about it, but I can't help but ask. I feel like the boys would have not only been in favor of this because, hey, the boys take care of each other, but this is really one of the first times, not the only time, but one of the few times, I should say that, one of the few times that a talent seemingly has leverage over the office, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and Jeff used it. We understand sometimes you burn the bridge, sometimes you blow the bridge up. But when you leave, so what? You don't normally leave on amicable terms. It's like, I'm getting a divorce. Oh, the divorce is amicable. That doesn't happen but once in a million times. When guys leave, especially during a competition that was so big like we had with WCW, you're not leaving on great terms. You're leaving because you couldn't get a deal done and you're going to the competition. So it's not like you're just going, oh, we're all kumbaya and shake hands. You want to get everything you can when you walk out the door. And the boys, believe me, we were not mad. In fact, we thought this is actually pretty cool that Jeff's holding up the balls here, and it looks like it's going to work, and it did. We were big fans of Jeff for doing this.
I do want to ask, as Jeff tells the story, he makes it clear that he comes into the show that day without his bag with the Intercontinental title or in his car. Then he wants to have a conversation. But you guys all knew that from maybe the house show loop the weekend prior. Had he told people, or how do you think that word had gotten out?
I don't know how it got around. I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe we had heard this before this from somebody. I'm not sure how we heard it. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we heard it day up. I don't want to put my stake in the ground and say definitively this is exactly what we heard. I just remember knowing about it because of being there, and I'm not sure when we exactly found out. But, Jeff, our point about this was Jeff is doing all the right things. Jeff is not taking the title with him. He's not telling to Eric Bischoff going, hey, if you'll give me an extra $500,000, I'll bring the title down with me. He was going to drop the title to a woman too. He's going to drop the title to China. And so Jeff was doing everything right. He just wanted to get paid. We didn't have any issue with this. The fact that he was, wanting to get all of his money from pay-per-views that had been, that he was going to get the next few months when he had no leverage. Jeff knew this. We didn't know that at the time. We thought Jeff was just holding him up for more money. We didn't have a problem with that either because Jeff was doing the right thing by us. Because he was doing the right thing by us, he was going to drop the title before he left. He never said, I'm going to take the title with me. He said, I'll drop the title. You just got to pay me. We had no issue with that whatsoever. We actually thought it was pretty cool.
I do want to give some context because this is not the first time that Jeff has walked out. He walked out back in '95. That was after In Your House 2 in Nashville. You may recall, John, that was the one where they had him drop the belt, the Intercontinental title at the time, to Shawn Michaels. And later in that night would be when he was exposed as not being a real country music singer. It was, in fact, the Road Dogg or the Roadie at the time who was the singer. And where does that leave the Double J character once you expose them as not really being?
All right, thanks for watching. Good night.
He could never really get
Take care,
straight
everybody.
answers.
One love.
So he